Holidays and welcome to GeekVerse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, rankings, and more here on the GeekVerse Podcast Network. I'm your host, the interloper, Dilmos, and I have with me the ice cold Kirklin Patzer. How's it going, my friend?
It's going very good. It's going very good. Just December's here. It's already almost. I guess we're still within the first week. Whenever it starts a new month at the end of a week, starting the next week, I just feel like I'm already 2 weeks in. But I'm sure I'm gonna be blinking, and then it's gonna be Christmas right around the corner. But I'm doing good.
Yeah. You're shattering the fourth wall because for the free feed, the audio listeners, the Spotify listeners, this is going to be dropping almost like on Christmas Day. I think the Sidequest Tuesday falls on Christmas Day, so it'll release around that time. But of course, if you support us over on Patreon, you could have got this episode, as Kirkland's mentioned, a good 20 days early. But yeah, this is going to be a fun episode here where we're just doing a ranking the best snow levels in video games, the best winter levels, the best snow levels, whatever you want to call it there. But this should be pretty fun. We've been doing a lot of rankings recently. Me and Taylor did a ranking of all the Mario Kart courses, and then before that, me and you did a ranking of the best video game titles of all time. So I'm liking doing more of these rankings, and I plan to keep that going. Obviously, we did the Arcane rankings. The Game of the Year stuff's releasing this month, so tons of ranking stuff recently. So hopefully people are into that. I think it's rankings are always easily digestible, good fun content, and this is a fun topic we have here. So I think we should just get right into it because, as I said, we're pre-recording this well in advance. So I don't know what's going on in the world when this episode's coming out. But yeah, here we are. We're going to be talking about our favorite, the best winter levels, snow levels, and right before we started recording, you kind of mentioned that. Going through a lot of these, a lot of them kind of have that holiday, that Christmas vibe. Maybe a lot of winter levels tend to have kind of more sleigh bells in the soundtrack, things like that. So it puts you in that vibe. And so I think it's interesting looking at this because there is kind of this, for me, there's kind of the two sides of it. There's that where it's the cozy Christmas vibes of a snow level. And then there's also just the cold kind of calculated, aesthetic of it. It's kind of more a simple color palette usually, and whenever there isn't a level that stands out more because of just the rest of the levels all white, or obviously this is maybe more of a wholesome thing generally, but also a lot of games that have violence and blood, blood on snow, that's prime right there. That lights up Christmas morning right there. So I don't know, that's kind of the way I was looking at it. I feel like most of mine kind of either fall in these two separate camps, but I think there's all sorts of things in between those. But yeah, when you were going through this list, was there a bunch of things that immediately came to your mind? Did you have to do some research? How did you go about making your kind of short list here?
Yeah, I had just quick fire off the top of my head, just certain ones that I've always just thought of when I think of a snow map, and not necessarily a festive one. And looking at my list now, I feel like majority of them aren't they don't have anything to do with a festive theme or anything like that, but they just feel cold. They feel very atmospheric. Maybe when I'm playing them, I just feel like my character is frozen in those moments. And that's not necessarily true for all of the lists, but that's I would say the underlining factor for the vast majority of them is just really encompass what it feels like to be cold. And unfortunately no major I can't really think of too many festive games actually that I could have pulled from. Maybe there's something on your list.
I feel a lot of games that are very seasonal based might have a Christmas event, even in Marvel Snap, they have a bunch of Christmas variants, or Overwatch, I feel always used to do that where they would, I don't know if they would do snow variants on their maps or just all the characters had their costumes, and I'm sure Roadhog is Santa or something like that.
It's actually Rudolph. I remember that one. He had a
really?
big red nose.
That's a weird combo there. But yeah, I feel that's kind of where things happen, but there isn't too many just strictly Christmassy games. I mean, I'm sure there's a few out there, but in the way that there maybe isn't a ton of Halloween games, but there's a ton of horror games, so they kind of are one and the same. I think that's kind of where these snow levels come in. And just to open it up here, we're not just talking about a specific level from a Mario game or something. We're kind of going pretty vague with this, so there are a lot of open world games on my list, but I think the goal for me and for you as well should be just try to be very specific. If we're talking about a big open world game that is mostly snow, then we're trying to zoom in. We're trying to zoom that scope in and get one specific section or area down. So we can talk about that as we go through it. But yeah, any other preamble, anything that you wanted? I guess how we're doing this is we're kind of doing it in a similar format to how we did the video game titles one, where we're both going to just keep lobbing out suggestions. We don't have a limit like we did for that, where we both had to stick to 15. I have 25 on my list and a few honorable mentions. I think I'll mention all of them. We'll see. I might skip a couple, but I think a lot of them might be just kind of quick mentions. And then we're gonna once we have that big list of stuff, then we're gonna shrink it down to a top 10 and then rank it. And I gotta say too, for me on the ranking side of things, like this list of 25 whatever games, I really have no idea which ones are gonna be top or bottom for me here. And the way that we came into that titles one, and there was a couple that I'm like, there's no way Spelunky is not making it in the top 10. Like I will not end the broadcast until I convince Kirklin to put that one on there. I don't think I have that for this. I don't know what are my like easy slam dunk ones and which ones I need to deliberate on. So I think it'll be a fun one to go through.
I actually have 23 on my list, so we have very similar numbers. So that's good.
I'm sure we'll have some overlap as well. So this is very exciting. But yeah, do you want to start us off? You want to throw a suggestion on the list?
I'll start us off. Where do I want to go? Okay, this is one that immediately I just knew was going to be on the list. I'm taking the Skyrail level. I believe that was the level, or at least the map's called, from 007 Nightfire. That's the one with the gondola that goes... We played it on GeekVerse Gauntlet, so there is footage of this map.
I do remember that map, actually. Yeah. I don't... Was there an actually gondola? I don't remember a gondola.
There's a gondola that just is constantly moving from like... There's two bases, one that's kind of at a higher elevation, and then you can ride that down. And I've played that one so many times, playing, I don't know, just multiplayer or against bots or whatnot, but just I've always loved the aesthetic of that. I feel like mostly back in the day I just liked it because of the gondolas. It's like a moving a moving variable that's new to have it on a level like that. But yeah, this one it's completely winter themed. Oh, there you go, the hat's coming off. Are you getting warm?
Yeah, it's just the Santa hat over the headphones is just not an aesthetic I'm vibing with. So I did it for the intro. But
I'm glad you had it for the intro.
It is also very warm in this room right now. Yeah, it's winter.
You look warm. But yeah, for this one, there's two different Skyrail maps actually on 007 Nightfire, and I believe they're both wintry as well. So it's kind of funny they're comparable there. But yeah,
is that kind of like GoldenEye? Kind of has like 2 or 3 variants of each map, like the certain aesthetic. They just have like a couple different configurations, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're a lot more different than what the the GoldenEye variants are, because those ones are basically the exact same, it seems. At least a handful of them. What was it? It was like Library and another one that was like
Complex.
Literally the exact same.
All these ones that look pretty much the exact same.
Yeah, 007 Nightfire Skyrail. There we go. Mm-hmm. I was mixing up the names there.
Nice. I will throw in then another first-person shooter competitive map here. I'm going to throw in Snowbound from Halo 3. I feel like Halo, there's a lot of these sort of shooters that tend to have like maybe one snow level in their midst. And Halo 3, or I guess the Halo series in general, I think is no stranger to that. And this is probably the best one. And honestly, Halo 3 is such a strong game, where like some of my favorite all-time like multiplayer competitive maps in that game. So I don't know if Snowbound is at the top of my Halo 3 ranking, but it's certainly a really nice snow level. And I think it kind of has that element that I alluded to earlier, where, you know, a lot of snow everywhere. It's like one color, except for like these 2, I guess, Covenant bases that are like bright purple, right? And so they kind of like are sticking up as the snow is kind of covering most of the map, and a couple of these like structures just like rise above it. So it has like this really nice aesthetic to it. And then even then there's like ghosts and other vehicles on this map too that are kind of cruising around. So I feel like it just really decorates it nicely. But yeah, it's kind of got like, you know, you can go inside, and that's like a bit of a reprieve from the cold, so to speak. But yeah, it's always been just like a solid map and a good classic snow level.
That's funny. This is actually specifically the map that I was looking for earlier that I wasn't able to find. Okay. I wasn't sure what Halo game it was from, but I remember playing a specific Halo snow level.
I don't know
if
it's ever been remade, or like, I don't think this was a Halo 2 one that was brought over to Halo 3, and I don't know if it was in like Reach or anything else. So I feel like it might have just been in Halo 3 and that was it.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm glad you thought of that one. Because the other snow level that I had brought up from Halo, this is from Halo 1, Sidewinder. This is the level where you're in the tank. I think you're in like the Scorpions for basically the entire level, and yeah, I just remember playing through this one so many times, really just loving it, because I feel like that was the first time I could like play in a tank like that in the Halo game. So it was really great, just introduction to that vehicle, as well as I mean, the whole map's it's snow. So there you go. It's got
I
the
don't know
snow
if I
aesthetic.
remember it because Halo 1 and 2, like I've really just played the campaigns. And so when it comes down to the competitive maps, like Halo 2, I think a lot of those were brought over and I played a little bit of that with friends. But yeah, I don't think I've ever played on Sidewinder, but this looks nice.
Well, Sidewinder is that's like the name of the mission itself. So
okay, it's a single player mission. Okay. I don't remember this one, but it's been a long time since I played Halo 1. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember that one so vividly because back on the original Xbox, there was like a glitch that you could like skip a checkpoint, so certain mobs just wouldn't spawn. And like a friend who had it just showed it to me, and I thought it was like hacks. Like I didn't understand how that was working. But
is that one going on the list too? Is that a top?
That was the one on my list because I couldn't think of the other one that you mentioned. So yeah, well, I wouldn't mind throwing it on there. It's got the nostalgia factor for me.
Why don't you throw another one? All right, out of here.
I will bring up the northern the northern wastes from Fable: The Lost Chapters. Now this isn't like a set level. I just think like the overall aesthetic. I believe it was in the expansion DLC, like the Lost Chapters portion of Fable.
Yeah, because in my mind I was like, I feel like I've seen snow in Fable, but like I went through all the areas on a wiki and I was like, there is no snow level, but I was definitely not as much of a player of the Lost Chapter. So that's where the snow area was?
Yeah. So that's like the final portion of that expansion DLC, and I just think they do such a great job with capturing like the cold aesthetic to it. Very dangerous enemies there. Obviously, it's like a later game area, but yeah, I wanted to throw that one on there.
Amazing aesthetics just from the images here.
Oh yeah, and the town. I forget what the name of the town is, but
Snowspire, perhaps.
Snowspire. There you go. Yeah.
Oh my god, that looks so cozy.
Oh yeah. Dangerous place.
Spoilers for the future of Sidequest. I think we will probably do a Fable retrospective before Fable 4 comes out. So I'm very excited to finally jump into that DLC. And experience Snowspire. I love that name. That's great.
It was such a big moment too, because when you're going from like the main area, they make like a big emphasis that it takes a long time to get to where you're going, and then when you get there, your character has like a big beard now, and like he's got grays, so clearly it took a long time.
Man, Fable is so good with that, just your character changing based on your actions and over time and whatnot.
Head of the game.
Shout out to Fable. Let's see. I think maybe I'll go with my nickname here. The Interloper. So this might be a bit of a weird one, but in Outer Wilds, one of my favorite games, where you're just playing around in this one solar system. In the solar system, there's a comet that's going around. It's kind of going on this weird elliptical motion, and it's just like an icy comet that's like going around. And it's something that you see all the time early on in the game, but it just is moving so fast and it's so small and it's on such a weird angle that you don't really think you're going to get to it. And then eventually you can figure out, triangulate location, try and land on the Interloper. And slight spoilers here for one of the puzzles on here, but I always thought it was really cool that when you're on the Interloper, it's this big icy comet, and you have to like get through the top of it somehow, but it's like so many thick layers of ice. You're like, I don't know how I can possibly do that. But the trick is to just like land on the Interloper and just wait on its cycle for it to get closer to the sun, and then it like starts melting a little bit, and then you can go through and get into it. So yeah, this is like maybe a pretty small, and probably the smallest area that we have on the list so far. But yeah, I thought it was always thought it was a really cool area. And always one that you just kind of see, and every once in a while you won't even be trying to get to it, and then it will just like comes flying at you and almost hit you because the game, because the game's scale and whatnot. So shoutouts to the Interloper.
That's awesome. I like that little puzzle hint, or just how you figure out.
Yeah,
the puzzle.
It's a funny one because it's like if you can't solve it, you might just accidentally solve it, because if you're just like spending 15 minutes trying to figure it out, you might just be on the planet or on the comet long enough for it to solve itself. Which that game has a few of those, and it always feels cool when you discover something like that.
Awesome. Okay, I will mention, which one should I go for here? Okay, I'll do the cliffhanger level from Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah, that was on my list too.
Yeah, that was another one that was just okay. Got to bring up this one. I feel like that's probably, All Gillied Up is like the renowned, like one of the best Call of Duty single player missions of all time. But that one, I remember just getting like that first E3 trailer for Modern Warfare 2. I remember being in the basement watching it with my cousin and just loving what we were seeing from that game. It was the first time they had like the heartbeat sensor and everything on it. So I think the excitement for that game and the fact that was the level that they showed off, it was so comparable to that All Gillied Up mission, just with like the stealth sequence to it. So yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, I had to watch a YouTube video for that because it's been so long since I've played through it myself. But like, I think the start of the level starts with you just like climbing up the
Yeah.
icy side with like some ice picks, and then your weapon has like this a white kind of camo over it, and,
Oh,
and that
yeah.
whole level like there's so this is like the epitome of just like full blizzard where you can't
Mhm.
see 10 feet in front of you, so you're just relying on that heartbeat sensor. So yeah, like really well designed level, but then also the aesthetics and the snow, that whole vibe of it makes the whole level. So I'm glad you
yeah.
shouted this one out. Yeah, such a fun stealth sequence.
And like your camera is just frosty all around it, like your screen that you're
Mhm.
seeing. So it just really captures, I think, that immersive of feeling absolutely cold.
Yeah, honestly, I really want to just like boot the game up and play that mission. Got kind of nostalgic for it. While we're talking about Modern Warfare 2, there was two competitive maps in that game, or two multiplayer maps, I should say, that were also snow themed. There was Derail and Subbase. I think Derail's. I just want to kind of shout it out because it's any map in that game is fun, but I think that's definitely falls below. But Subbase was always like one of my favorites. I think for
Yeah.
like free for alls or teams, just like very vertical focus, like kind of different hallways, kind of ways you can sneak around the outside of the map, or just like the huge altercations that would happen in the middle. It was always one of my favorites in that game, and the snow aesthetic of it definitely added, I feel like, to the intensity of it. So
Yeah.
that one's
No,
on the list as well.
I'm glad you you brought up both of those because I have very vivid memories with each of those maps. On Derail, that was the first map I ever got a nuke on. Very, very big
Nice.
core memory.
Okay.
And then a little bit before that on Subbase, that was the first one I got the EMP on, which was like the second highest.
Man, I don't know if I ever
kill
got a
streak.
nuke on Derail. That was definitely I was definitely more of like an Afghan or
Yeah.
wasteland guy. Those were like my two places where I got the most. I don't know if I was. And the thing with Derail is like I had to watch some YouTube videos because I'm like I couldn't remember the exact layout of it. Whereas Subbase,
Yeah.
I feel like I could still go on that map and just give you a guided tour of every room. I just remember it so well. But that's so cool that that was your first nuke. That's very
Yeah,
memorable.
it was one of those situations where I camped the entire game. I was in like the very center of the map. There's like a 2-story building or something. Maybe it's a 3-story. I can't quite remember. But yeah, I had like no deaths that game. I had probably one-man army or scavenger pro, whatever it
Yeah.
was. The ultimate camping
A
setup.
good level to hide on because of the.
Yeah.
It also has like the blizzard stuff going on in terms of the visibility
Yeah,
of it.
that's right.
Should that one go on the list? It sounds like it should for the time being.
Yeah, might as well. I didn't have it on my list, but we're bringing up some fond memories.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Of course, we'll make a huge list right now. You can go ahead and add another one here.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up. I had to find a way to get a Warhammer map on here.
Okay,
no,
yeah.
no, no. With Warhammer, it's usually just one giant map. There is some snow areas, but this is very specific. It's actually the prologue for Warhammer 3, so it's like a shorter little campaign that you do, pretty linear. But what that prologue is you start in the northern regions and you're just traveling into in the Warhammer world. The Chaos realm is in like the far north, so you're very, very north, and then as you keep going further and further, things just start getting weird, and it goes from being like icy level to just like full on like you're entering hell. So they did such a good job at just like thematically just getting your character feel like they're going crazier and crazier as they go deeper into the wastes, and just the whole overall map. It had some really, really fun battles that they had set up, and like the campaign map itself, it was just changing as you got farther north, and your character was getting crazier and crazier, making like more rash decisions. It's a pretty short like intro to the game. It's probably like an hour total to finish that little prologue sequence, but I just thought they did such a good job at capturing the overall aesthetic of what that game is, of like bringing in like the chaos factions into the game, but also just immersively. It was so well done. I remember when that game came out, midnight release, so it was like 9 p.m. our time, and I was just like waiting for this game forever, and that was the first thing I'd played. I just thought they nailed the nail on the head with that one. So
Nice.
yeah, I wanted to bring that one up. It's kind of a niche pick. I don't know how it's gonna make it in the long run, but I thought they did such a good job on it. I wanted to bring it into this list. And come on, got to get a Warhammer title somewhere.
You got to. How about I think now's a good time maybe to bring in one of my open world game picks.
Let's do it.
And I have a handful of these, but not too many. The first one here I'm going to shout out is the town of Bruma from the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So this
Ooh.
is the most northern town in on the world map, and it's kind of very close to the border of Skyrim. So unsurprisingly, that it's the snowy place. But yeah, it's always been one of my favorite towns in that game. Every city, every town in that game is really great, and there's like a good like 8 or 9 of them. They're all really awesome. But I've always just loved the aesthetic of Bruma. Just the snow piled high on the roofs, the rooftops, and it's always kind of been like a cozy place for me too. Just the kind of log cabin style aesthetic of the buildings there. There's like a giant church kind of in the middle of the town. But yeah, I've always loved Broome, and I think it's always a bit more of a low key spot in the game. It's not really where any of the main quests or any factions are. I think there's probably a fighters and mages guild there, but I feel like that's not where any of those guilds kind of center around. So it kind of ends up being this more special place that you just go to every once in a while. And then I think one of the main quest areas like nearby is like where their big hideout is. So like near the end of the game, you're spending a lot of time there if you're doing the main quest stuff. So shoutouts to Bruma, just awesome. A great aesthetic.
It's funny because it looks totally like a town right out of Skyrim, right?
Yes,
so it makes sense
definitely.
that it is so close to Skyrim. Just looking very different from the overall, like the other Oblivion towns, at least the ones that I'm familiar with. Because when I think of Oblivion, I really just think of like the Cyrodiil
Imperial
capital.
City. Yeah.
So no, good shout out. I like
Definitely.
that. Okay, I'm gonna go another strategy title here. This is from Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, one of my favorite RTS games of all time.
Nice.
And this, I don't know what the area is called, but the specific level is just called Frostmourne. It's a really badass key moment. I'm sure you're aware of the character, I almost call him the Witch King. My gosh, the Lich King. There you go.
Yeah.
Arthas, when he finally claims Frostmourne, that's like the blade that corrupts him, and then he becomes the Lich King. But it's just a great like climax because up until that point, I actually think that is the final level on the human campaign. So you're finally at like the end of the journey. It's very similar to the situation I was mentioning from Warhammer 3, where your character is just going so far north, and he's kind of like forgetting the main reason of like why he's doing this. He's just going so crazy, and by the end of it, he's just trying to take his final his main enemy out, and he doesn't really care who he has to sacrifice for it. So I just love that level so much for the build-up of the actual overall story, as well as it's just aesthetically it feels like you're in the most northern region of the world up until that point, because I think like the levels leading up to it, it's kind of wintry, but that is definitely like the pinnacle of it. And I mean, you get the blade in ice, so it's just a really
blade based on these pictures here.
So that's a big nostalgia title for me too. I remember playing that as a wee lad and loving it lots, and I still think of it when I think of a frost, icy level.
I feel like there's also like kind of two categories of the snow levels where there is just straight up covered in snow, like the blanket of snow. But then there's also the really icy levels. And I feel like they have a very different tone where the ice is kind of like this teal blue, and I feel like this is kind of more icy. Obviously it's got a lot of both, but for me it's one of those like very strong icy places, which is such a striking thing, right? All these sharp edges and whatnot of the ice. So
totally,
I really like that. Really like that shout out. Let me bring in Summit. This is a stage in Super Smash Bros. I think it's pretty much in all of them Brawl onwards. This is the kind of Ice Climbers stage. They've always had two Ice Climber stages. One is like the one that scrolls up and down as you're playing through it. Fuck that stage. I hate that stage.
That.
Not a big fan of it whatsoever. But Summit has always been a really fun one where you start out where you're just like this big iceberg, essentially at the top of a mountain, I think. And then it like starts sliding down the mountain. So that's kind of like one hazard part. And then it just drops into like the deep waters, and then it's kind of just floating there. And then there's like fish and whatnot. But I think in terms of as far as Smash Bros. Stages go, this one's always had an interesting structure to it where it's kind of got that classic almost triangle shape of like Battlefield, but instead there's like a huge chunk of snow or ice, whatever it is, in like the very center of it. So it ends up being like a giant O shape. And so it makes like this chaotic thing where you can kind of run in circles or chase someone or you can kind of camp. And I don't know, it's definitely not a competitive stage by any means, but it's always been one of my favorites in terms of just casual play. And I was surprised too when I was looking through the list of stages in like Smash Ultimate, which has, almost every stage that's been in the whole series. And there's only two like snowy maps of any kind, and it's these two. It's the two Ice Climber ones, which is surprising to me. I thought there would be like at least another one or two snow levels that sneak in there, but I guess if they're having a Mario level, they're not gonna pick the snow aesthetic Mario. They're going to pick the more kind of classic Mushroom Kingdom sort of aesthetic. So
yeah.
I feel like that's something I didn't think about until now. But the next Smash Bros. Game needs like a new, fresh snow level, and like not an Ice Climbers one. Like give us a new, just different aesthetic.
Not really a moving one either. We don't like the moving maps.
No, definitely not.
Nice.
There you go, Summit.
Good mention. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a specific one from Smash, but because I knew the Ice Climbers obviously would have had a level, but nothing really piqued my nostalgia isms enough to really want to go out there and search for it. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna mention. I believe the level is called A Train to Catch from Uncharted 2. This was the sequence that's actually on the cover of the game where you have Nathan Drake like hanging on to the train. It's hanging on off of like the cliff. I think it was kind of like the E3 level as well. Maybe it's not, but I just remember that level's that piece. That overall set piece and sequence just so clear before I even got my hands in the game. And then that was one that as I was playing the game, I'm just waiting to get to that point because I knew it was coming and I knew how epic it was. But when you actually play through it, it just delivers so much bigger, I think, than I already had my expectations set, because you don't actually start like in the mountains on it. You're pretty low elevation. You're close to some water, and then as the level gets to the climactic moment where you go off the rails, and then it gears into another level that is set, I think, in like the Himalayan mountains. So I could maybe pick that one, but I wanted to go for the train one just because. Yeah, I think that is the more iconic sequence, and by the end of it, like Nate is just so like busted and bloody, and then you just find yourself like in the snow, just freezing, and you just feel for the character, like you feel his pain and his cold in that moment, and so much snow. That level has so much snow in it, so definitely knew that one was going to be on the list. So I just wrote train sequence from Uncharted 2, because like I said, there is like a later level that's actually set like in the Himalayan mountains, but I don't know, I thought this one was a little bit more iconic.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one is probably gonna be a favorite of mine, just putting that out early. This is Hokkaido from Hitman 2016, I guess we can call it, which I feel like, have you played this map? I know you've dabbled a bit. I know you've mentioned this map before, but maybe we've just talked about it in passing.
I remember it very clearly from your Hitman map rankings that you did. Okay. I checked that out, and then I was looking at the maps that way. But no, I haven't played it. Yeah,
so this is the Hitman level set in the mountains of Japan, and it's great because you can go out well, essentially it's this high class hospital, but then also like there's this spa resort area. There's like this high end sushi bar, and then of course there's all like the employee areas when you get behind the closed doors, the locked doors. But if you just go out to the balcony, you can just look down and see like this beautiful like winter landscape. You can see this like city out in the distance. These beautiful like Mount Fiji level mountains going on. One of the escape routes you can use is just to hop on a gondola and like cruise down the mountain, which is always very fun.
I love gondolas.
Yeah, but this map is like perfect because you kind of have like that little terrace area that has almost like little koi ponds and whatnot, and I feel like it's like very steamy, and in the way you would like in a winter place, like go into a hot tub and then you get out. All that has that whole feel to it. But yeah, this is just like an all-time great Hitman map, and it's got that beautiful winter aesthetic, the mountains, the gondola, all the ice, all that kind of stuff you could want from it. So I feel like this, in terms of just raw like best levels of all time, Hokkaido's up there just regardless of aesthetics. So the fact that it's also snow level, it's gonna make it a favorite for me here. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites too of the whole trilogy. I forget where I put it on my ranking, but off the top of my head, I'd say it's like top 5, top 10, somewhere in that pocket. In a game that has just amazing levels the whole way through. So there you go, Hokkaido.
That's a beautiful looking level. Just looking at some of these images. I think I'll follow your very heart pick with my other very passionate pick. This is from one of my favorite games of all time, Journey. Little indie game that I bring up all the time. I feel like I've played through this game no less than 5 times. It's just such a good sit down.
I did not know there was a winter snowy part of this game.
Yeah, so when you continue on the journey, there's a certain section that you get pretty high up in the mountains, and your character like just feels like they're freezing up. Like your movements get super slow. You get frost over all your character, and it actually starts like like damaging sort of your character a little bit. And I just think that they did. I mean, I love that game so much. I feel like they totally tear at your heartstrings. They immerse you in this world without any like words in it whatsoever. But specifically this section, you just really feel like you've been on this journey for very, very long time. You've made all these like kilometers of treks up this mountain, and then at this point it's just like gusts of wind that's blowing snow on your character, and you just really freeze up. I won't say what happens after it if anyone hasn't played the game, but I think that this section, they really just do such a good job at making you feel, I think, the length of the journey that you've already been on, and it feels like you're right at the end, but you're like still not quite there, and it almost just feels like you can't keep moving on. But I think they did such a good job at just capturing that there's tons of snow, but also just like the cold that
the harshness of it. Yeah, I think that's a good thing to bring up. I feel like there's a lot of survival games that incorporate that too, in terms of their mechanics, which I think is always good. But and even like we didn't have to talk about this, but a lot of snow levels tend to have like slippery blocks if you're thinking about like a Mario game, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing. You know, often that's very annoying, and that might be why some of the like traditional Mario levels don't get super high on my list. But so yeah, I think there's like different pros and cons to what a snow level could be. What should we call that section or that level?
It's actually just called snow, I guess. I
love
like the specific level.
Speaking of Mario, let's get Mario on the list here. So Super Mario 64 has 2 snow levels you can go to. There's one called Snowman's Land, which is not one of my favorites. I think it's probably maybe even just the individually weakest map in the whole, or course in the whole game. But then the other one is Cool Mountain, and this is one of my favorites. It's one of the very early ones. I think it's maybe the second or third door you have access to, and this is just all about like that snowboard fantasy kind of. There's like the huge slide outside. There's a slide inside where you can race against the penguin down the whole mountain there. A lot of ice, a lot of snow, and this one's just obviously one big old mountain. And you know, there's like a snowman that you can repair him on this map and whatnot. So it's got all of those snow things to it. And I think for me too, out of all of these, like this is the music I can instantly picture in my head, and it has like little sleigh bells in there, and it has that holiday wholesome vibe to it. So
yeah,
shout outs to Cool Mountain.
That one was on my list as well. Nice. I'm not even a big like Super Mario 64 player. I think the fact that it is early on in that game, it helps because I actually have played that one, and I think it also just kind of captures. I don't know how festive it is, but in my mind, I just think kind of Christmassy.
The music, it's like music, man. Yeah. That just throws the layer, the aesthetics like way over the top. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. So yeah, good shout out. Oh yeah, it was lower on my list, but I had that one on there. Okay, I'm going to mention the opening prologue for Red Dead 2. Okay. You didn't play Red Dead, did you?
Not yet. Not 2.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2. This is probably one of the best looking snow I think any video game has ever done, ever. I mean, it's Rockstar, so obviously you would expect big quality, but that one, there's people freezing and dying, and you just feel like you're going to be one of them. Like, they do such a good job. There's a section where you're on a horse with, like, a lantern, and you can barely see, like, anything in front of you because it's just, like, nighttime and the blizzard's hitting through. And, yeah, this one, I knew it was going to be on here because it's just such a well-done sequence. So, just prologue for Red Dead 2.
Which, yeah, I've definitely heard about that before, and I kind of forgot. But it's funny to me that both Red Dead 2 and GTA 5 have like the snow prologue.
That's right, yeah.
I guess GTA 5 is probably a lot, like I think that section of Red Dead's like, it's an extended sequence, you know, whereas GTA 5, it's essentially like the tutorial mission that takes you probably no more than, well, even that probably takes a good like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. That's an iconic one too. I don't think for me it's on the list necessarily, but definitely worth a shout out. But was that one on your list, by the way? Should we put it on there or?
For GTA?
For GTA 5.
GTA, I had it as an honorable mention just because I think it was much shorter, like the Red Dead sequence, like you said. Like, you actually do missions and stuff. It's not just one set mission. So, yeah.
And then, this is also a funny theme, with like the 2 GTA ones, and then here's my next pick, is the tutorial from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is also like a snowy area. So I've just been playing this recently, and I'm very excited to talk to you about this game. I want to play more of it, and I'll bring it up at some point in Sidequest in the future because I want to have a full discussion about how weird and interesting this game is from like the Fire Emblem fan perspective. But just a very quick setup for this game is that, you know, it's a fantasy setting game, but the actual way that's contextualized within the game is that you're a bunch of kids like playing like a D&D campaign, and so like the actual game is like that D&D campaign, but then the prologue of the game is like you and your friends hanging out in your town, and it's winter, and the tutorial of the game is like done through a snowball fight that you're having like in the backyard before you like go into whoever's house and set up the game, and then like go into the actual game itself. So I just think that's such a funny and weird idea, but also just like how many games have like snowball fights or snowball throwing mechanics as a thing. It just doesn't happen very often. So this is obviously not going to be the most engaging tactical level in the game because it's the introduction of the mechanics. But at least for the aesthetics of it, it definitely is worthy of a shout out. So I'll just call it the tutorial. I don't know if it has an actual chapter title, but yeah.
That's awesome. I like how it kind of not necessarily breaks, kind of breaking like the fourth wall of just your character is.
It's weird.
Yeah,
it is weird for sure.
And it's kind of like Tiny Tina's Adventure, right? Where like isn't that game they're playing like a board game? Isn't that?
I love your rendition on the title of that, but I think it is. I think it is that.
Am I close?
I think Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So you're Adventure Wonderland, but yeah.
Whatever it is. Okay, moving on. What do I got here? Oh, okay. This was a big one for me. I completely forgot about this set level until I was doing some research for it, and I'm so glad I found it because this one I truly think it has a place in the top 10 list. This is a boss battle from Metal Gear Solid 4. It's called the Crying Wolf boss battle. Guns and the Patriots, I believe, is the subtitle for that game. Man, this is. I remember playing this at the time on like the PS3, and I couldn't believe of how like well made this boss sequence was. It's a boss battle, but it's not like you're in a closed room. It's a very open outside area. It's a massive blizzard going on with tons of snow, and there's just this like super sniper that's like trying to hunt you down and snipe you, but there's also like tons of enemies, so you have to be really creative with stealthing around the area while dodging like sniper fire from this thing that's hunting you. You have like a camouflage mask, so you can kind of go like perfectly camouflaged with some thermal vision, so you can like kind of see the enemies. But I don't know, I just think the fact that there's so many different things going on as opposed to you just fighting like a single boss, those games, I think that's actually like the main Metal Gear Solid, like the most that I put time into a Metal Gear Solid game was Metal Gear Solid 4. And I just thought throughout that entire game, all of the boss battles were very, very different and unique, and I'm sure that just carries over with all the other titles maybe before and after that one. But for that specific boss battle, they just did such a good job at capturing, again, like you just feel super, super vulnerable, even though you do have some tools to your advantage to kind of hide in the snow. But there's like just this sniper somewhere on this map, and then it's a pretty long like it's probably like a 30-minute fight because you're not just fighting the enemy, you're taking out the other guys while dodging them, and then you have to eventually get up to this big tower to try and find the enemy that you're fighting. And I just remember dying a lot and then feeling very satisfied by the end of it. And it's not even like a Souls game or anything like that. It's just early in my gaming career. I just felt really accomplished from that one. So yeah, it's called Crying Wolf Boss Battle, Metal Gear Solid 4. I think I'll be fighting for that one later on.
I love it. I'm going to bring in the next one here after our first break. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. I'm curious how this one's going to hit your ear, because I feel like I'd be surprised if you had this on your list, but hopefully you're like, oh shit, I totally missed that. And this is it's called the Battle of Blizzard Bridge from Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I don't know if you remember this one. I don't know. I assume did you get to the whole snow area in that game? Yeah. So this one really stands out to me. One, it just has like the most banging music ever. Where it's just like a 7-minute long, like just intense jazz fusion track.
Yes.
But this level is pretty
100%.
simple. You're just going across this snowy bridge, and then you're ducking into the doors and like doing little battles or puzzles in different rooms, and then just going across the bridge more. So it's a very simple level. But I love the aesthetics of this map in general. The look, and like I said, that music. The music is not traditional, like, once again, not a lot of sleigh bells, not a lot of that wholesome vibe.
Yeah.
But it is just a level with an amazing aesthetic. And when I think about that game, that is the first level that pops into my head always. I really, really love that level. So shout outs to that game in general. I feel like it kind of got forgotten a bit, title pun intended there. But man, I love that game. It's great.
Oh, it was super fun. Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that one up because I completely forgot about this. But there's just such a well-made like sequence, and definitely captures that snowy, cold aesthetic. So yeah, good shout out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what else have I not mentioned here? Let's go. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna move over to Skyrim here.
Let's do it. Yep.
I feel like I
Skyrim
could
time.
mention so many different places in this one. I think the main one that popped out to me is the Throat of the World, like the High Hrothgar section, but I mostly just wrote down like the 7,000 steps, because I think that the first time that you make that ascent, you just really feel like you're like it's, I don't know, maybe gonna last forever. That's where you run into the Frost Troll, I think, for the first time in that game, at least if you haven't found one in other places. Got absolutely messed up by it, but they did just such a great job with just the snow coming down on you as you just keep going up and up. You got snow just all over the stairs. And yeah, it looks very cold for a game that doesn't have like those sort of elements that you really have to care about. Like your character could be technically naked running up that hill. It's not too much of an issue, but I still think they did a good job at making it feel cold. Probably just the music and the sound of the wind. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in terms of Elder Scrolls stuff in general, usually it's like the more dungeon areas are the ones that are those more handcrafted levels that we think of, and you're kind of sent through it in a very specific way. But that's the time when they get to kind of do. I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of ways you can glitch around and do it in all sorts of different ways. But I think it's just a very intentional climb. And yes, it's like they talk about how this is like some impossible climb that no one's ever done, and you can do it in like 15 minutes or whatever. But I always like doing it. I did it like multiple times in that game, and it was always a delight, a nice fun ascent. For me, so I had 2 from Skyrim, so we'll get through all of them. But the one that stood out to me the most, and I don't know, y'all have to say, is this weird that Windhelm is the first place that comes to mind when I think of like winter aesthetic in Skyrim?
Not at all, because they even say in the game that that's the coldest region in all of Skyrim.
Okay.
Like it is the snowiest like it is the snowiest city. I believe they say that, some of the NPCs.
Right. So I totally missed that lore beat of it. I guess it makes sense. It's kind of more northeast on the map, like maybe not the most northeast spot, but it's like it's up there. But yeah, I feel like for me it's one of those places that I know I might be wrong about this, but I feel like you can never see the sky because it's always just overcast and snowy, and you can't see too far ahead. Snow is always on the ground, and I think for me definitely like the walk up to the city for the first time when you're going across the bridge, and that whole area is just absolutely covered in snow, because obviously tons of Skyrim is like there's a bit of snow on the tree, but then it's like a grassy area. You know, they obviously mix up the environment quite a bit. But yeah, Windhelm is, when I think of that deep snow aesthetic, or whenever I get nostalgic for Skyrim, it's like the first thought in my mind is like, I just want to walk around Windhelm for a half an hour. And then sometimes I'll just load up the game, do that, and then I'll just go do something else instead. But yeah, that was definitely the top of mind for me.
And some of those cities in Skyrim, like once you're inside of it, it feels cozy. You know, like you mentioned, there's not necessarily snow all over the ground. And like Solitude, for example, like it very much feels like a Cyrodiilic city.
Right.
But Windhelm, like it feels like you're on the throat of the world when you're in that city.
Yeah, there's a lot of people just living in the streets, and they're complaining about how cold it is, right? So that adds to that feeling too.
And that one really feels like when you enter, I forget the name of the inn, like right when you walk in through the city gate, it just feels like you're like, oh, okay, I finally got a break from the cold here. Like they did a good job with that city. So yeah, that's a very solid shout out there. I think the other city that I might have mentioned is Winterhold, which is just the one north of it. And like it, like I mean, it's Skyrim, so basically all these cities are gonna have snow everywhere. But for that one specifically, you're like right off of the Sea of Ghosts, which is just like icebergs.
Yeah, great view looking down from up there. Really like scary and beautiful at the same time.
And then you just have like the college just floating there, like undisturbed by the great tragedy that happened that no one can really explain what happened. But that one, I think for just the overall looks, but I think if I had to compare the two, I would give it to Windhelm, just because it is, like they say in the game, it is the coldest region.
There you go. You can pitch another one because I brought up Skyrim. Or wait, you brought up Skyrim. So I'm going to go next.
Yeah,
I'm
going
to go. This is another... I'm going to go for this. So Spelunky and Spelunky 2 both have the ice cave. So this is a bit different, right? Where it's not a specific handcrafted level. Instead, it's a roguelike. So the configuration is always going to be a little bit different each time around. Between the two games, I'm going to I think they're both fantastic areas in their respective games. They're very different the way they're structured. I'm going to go with Ice Caves from Spelunky 1. I think that's the more maybe interesting area. And for me, it's like the music is really fantastic there. There's certain special levels that will pop up too that change the aesthetic. Sometimes it'll be snowing, sometimes not. And I think this is the perfect example of where a slippery surface is like a fun additional challenge to the game, rather than like some annoying element of not having control. And then there's like also ways to get around that. And then I feel like there's a part of like snow levels where it's like kind of like sparse, right? Because everything's kind of this monotone color.
Right.
And that feels very much like the case in Ice Caves, because that's the only area in Spelunky that doesn't have like a proper ground to it. Like there's platforms you're jumping on, but if you fall off a ledge, you just will tumble down into, an eternal abyss and just die, rather than the opposite, which would, take fall damage, smashing into the ground or something like that. So a lot of great vibes to the Ice Caves, but the music too is also just sparsely kind of decorates the landscape and all that. So definitely a great aesthetic there.
Nice. I was curious if a Spelunky was going to be brought up in here.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because of the roguelikeness of it, but it's definitely a very standout zone.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to pull another title that's near and dear to my heart. This has come from the Sly Cooper franchise.
Okay.
Sly 2, Episode 7, Operation Canada Games. This is definitely one of my favorite, I think, episodes in the entire game. And it's not just because it is Canada, but just the actual, I think, mechanics that it introduced, because Sly, the thievius raccoonist that he is, he's very nimble and agile. He can run on lines and whatnot. But this was the area, I should say, this was the first area that they brought in that you can kind of change because he has a hook for, pickpocketing and doing other things with it. But he can switch it into 2 to ice climb on it. So
Nice.
so it captures that element to it, and it's got the Northern Lights in it. You got polar bears here. This entire level, I say level, it's an episode because it's kind of open world once you're in the episode, and then you do set missions inside of it. But the final mission on that episode is literally, it's called the Canada Games, and you're competing in this competition. So there's barrel running where you're trying to balance on the barrels of the water. I don't know what that's called. I guess just barrel roll or something.
Barrel roll, yeah, sure.
It's like the lumberjack games that they have in certain areas. But and there's just a bunch of different games that you're competing in, and they're all, again, with that cold, snowy aesthetic to it. And the boss battle is really fun. You're in a lumber yard for that one, and it just, it's cold, it's snowy throughout the entire sequence, and I thought they nailed it with the aesthetic of that one. Mm-hmm. And very different than the other levels that you're just coming across in that game. And I think that's the only there might be one snow level, I'm trying to think now, in the first game. I think there is a snow level in the first game. It's one of the earlier ones there. But I thought they did such a good job with this one. Yeah,
man, that game. After you talked about, I think you mainly talked about Sly 1, Sly Cooper, on Sidequest a few months ago. Yeah. And whenever I do get that PS5 and get that collection of all those backwards compatible games, very excited to jump in. But now even more so, now that I know about this level, that sounds great. Very excited.
I can't wait for you to play it and hear your experience, especially for a first timer. Because for me, I have so much nostalgia on it, but then I play it, I'm like, this still holds up. This is great. But I'm curious what you're gonna think.
Well, speaking of Canada, let's bring up this next one. So this is the whole section here. This is the Mario Kart section. So obviously me and Taylor just talked about a lot of these maps on our ranking episode there, but these are some great snow levels, so I got to bring them up again. There are so many in Mario Kart, so I've toned it down to 4, but that already still feels like too many. But this is still the early stages of this. We can have as many things as we want here. So this one I think is more an honorable mention, but Vancouver Velocity, of course, I'll shout this map out anytime I can. There is the kind of snow section for a little bit, but it's only a small part of it, so I don't think I'll bother putting it on there, but just that one can exist more as a shout out. But then there are 2 different ski hill maps that really stand out to me. One is Mount Wario. Now, I'm not going to spoil where me and Taylor put this on our ranking, but I'll say that it's pretty high up there. That was one of my favorites. So Mount Wario. This is just one long course rather than having laps. and you're just going through. There's a certain area where you're going through the moguls, the kind of race area section where you're going through a bunch of trees and jumping off logs and whatnot. Just a really, really great map. Love that one a whole lot. And then the other one is, I guess, from Mario Kart Wii, but is in Mario Kart 8 as well. And this is DK Summit, so it's a similar vibe where it's a ski hill, but this is the Donkey Kong themed one. So shouts to that one. And then the last one for me is one that we didn't talk about in that episode because it's not in it. One of the very few maps that is not in that game is Frappe Snowland from Mario Kart 64. And this is just a level that I would play endlessly as a kid. And it's one of those ones where I wouldn't even do the race. Sometimes I would just load the map up just to cruise around in the snow. And there's like huge snow banks. And I've always loved the aesthetic of it. So yeah, shout out to Mario Kart. Tons of snow levels in those games. Yeah. And they have a good mix of like icy ones, like even, shouts to Rosalina's Ice World, which was recently added, which is also great. There's so many. And so I tried to pick just a handful here, but there's like 3 or 4 or 5 other ones that I could shout out because they're all really great. So
I think you got the big ones for sure.
Nice.
Because I think if I had to pick certain snow levels from Mario Kart, DK Summit definitely, just because I love that level a lot. Would have done the Vancouver one just for recency because it's top of my head. But yeah, Wario, what's it called?
Mount Wario.
Mount Wario. There you go. That one's so fun. It just feels very epic too when you're racing to the finish line because you just feel like you're actually doing like a
that
a ski
last
race
rush
or
to the end is really exciting. Definitely.
Oh yeah, Shay's gotten some clutch wins on me or against me rather on that.
Yeah, there's like that last little 2 bends right after you get to the bottom of the hill. So good.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead. What's next?
Okay, let's go. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna bring up Metro 2033. That one takes place, you're basically in the metro for the majority of the game, but you do go to the surface, and it's kind of like a apocalyptic, snowy, just cold, dead land. Like there's no life up there, and it really feels frozen and just cold and dangerous when you're up there. I love Metro so much. I imagine in the later games, I think even the last one is more of an open world, so I do think you go to the surface quite a bit more than in that early title. But I think that the fact that you go to the surface so little in that first title, it just feels like you keep hearing stories of the surface and how dangerous it is, and when you actually go up there, it is terrifying. It is cold, and there is like these just giant demon type things that are hunting you from the sky. So that one, I don't know where it's gonna last. By the end of our rankings, but I definitely wanted to bring it up here just because they really hit home on just the snowy coldness of what the world is. Because I don't know, I think early on in the story too, people are like hopeful and dreaming that like someday you could return to the surface. And then when you actually go there, you're like, this is no, we're living in the subways for the rest of our lives here, folks.
That's what would happen in Arx Fatalis if we ever got that sequel and we went up to the surface. What is there a name for that?
I just wrote the surface for Metro 2033. Might be a cheap answer there. It's pretty vague.
No, that's good. That's good. Great. I'm going to bring up this one next, which is Midgard from God of War Ragnarok. And I guess even in God of War 2018, you would also have this section, but it's definitely more snowy because it's kind of the Thimble winter, the never-ending winter has kind of been going on at the start of Ragnarok. But this is kind of where by you, I mean Kratos and Atreus live at the start of the game, and it's that game's very much about revisiting the same areas over and over again. You're exploring new paths along them, or all these things are happening there. So that's like the kind of the home base of the game, and you return there multiple times. But then it branches out, and that's like, it is kind of a huge area, so this might be a bit of a cop-out for me picking one level, but it is kind of one continuous area, so it's hard to declare one place the start and one not. But I'm thinking about the section where their house is, the areas that branch out from around there, and down into the what should be like this giant water lake area, but is instead just like completely frozen over, and then you can like kind of go across it on your snow sled, whatever that's called, dog sled, whatever what is that called? I feel like it has one succinct name. Sleigh, yeah, sleigh. Kind of going around that whole area. So whatever. There's tons of snow in that game, so it's hard to there's so much you could shout out, but
yeah,
I'm gonna go specifically the Midgard area.
Nice.
Yeah.
I figured God of War would have been brought up. I only played a little bit of minutes of that first one, so I didn't really experience too much snow. I guess there is snow in there, but not enough for me to mention.
Yeah.
Okay, I got kind of in the honorable mentions section, sort of, just because these are in my mind.
I'm almost down to my
little
honorable
vague.
mentions. I got a
Yeah,
couple more
a
here.
little like general area. So one of them being Assassin's Creed 3. Basically, that whole game is like set in the wintry wilderness, and I think they
Okay.
just did such a good job at certain areas of it feeling a lot more snowy than others. Like you really feel like you're, I mean, in that era of just unexplored wilderness, I could say, like going through the trees and just snow falling and the big deep snowy sections that you hit. It just really feels cold and snowy and somewhat festive, actually, even though they don't really mention Christmas. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just remember playing that game around Christmas. I think I actually got it for Christmas, so that's
There's probably some
it.
$1 microtransaction and wear a Santa hat or something. So
Yeah. Ubisoft crossover amongst other games, they usually do that.
Sorry, is there an area to shout out?
No,
in
just
that? It's a little more general.
I just wrote like the wilderness of Assassin's Creed 3.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll toss it to you.
Sure. I'm gonna go with this. I had one more Call of Duty map here, and this is from Call of Duty Black Ops, and this is Summit.
Yeah.
I love Summit. I've talked about this on Sidequest or GeekVerse in general before. This is one of my just go-tos. Me and my friend would just destroy on this map. But I feel like even the little thumbnail picture for it in the loading screen is like a gondola. I think is kind of the main picture in the center of the image there.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, just a classic. I feel like I've kind of said anything I could about a winter level through the other Call of Duty ones we talked about, and this is of course like a multiplayer map, not a single player level. I can't remember if there's a single player level that goes through a snow area. I'm sure there is. So I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, shoutouts to Summit was always one of my favorites, and that's funny because that's the same name as the Smash Bros stage. So now we have two summits on the list. And we have DK Summit. There's
oh my gosh,
a variety of summits.
That's what the snow is, so it makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
I'll bring up a summit here. I don't think it's called Summit, but this is a kind of a reoccurring level, meaning like you'll go back to that certain area a couple different times throughout the game. Far Cry 4, that's the one that's set in Kyrat. That's the fictional world that they have, but it's in the Himalayas. So think like Nepal and that aesthetic. There is a section that you actually get flown like basically to the summit of a mountain, and it's like all super snowy. I believe that game even had like a Yeti DLC that you're probably like hunting down a Yeti. I never ended up getting that one, but I just thought they did. I mean, throughout that game, you are kind of on the mountains, so you do see some snowy sections, a couple avalanches here and there. But for that specific level, you actually are on the peak, and it's like a lesser version of the cliffhanger from Modern Warfare 2 level, where it's kind of blizzardy, like it's kind of emphasizing that you can sneak around. And I mean, the stealth mechanics are much better in that game than what Modern Warfare 2 probably has. But I really want to mention that one just because there's a lot of snow on the summit of the Himalayan mountains there. So yeah,
nice. Speaking of Nepal, I got another one here. And believe it or not, the map is called Nepal from Overwatch. This is a map that has a couple variations, right, for the different game modes. There's like slightly different variations of it. But yeah, you're just in this kind of beautiful Himalayan town. Snow, it's kind of a little more sparse. It's not like just layered deep in snow, but it adds like this nice aesthetic to it. And yeah, it's always been, I think differs depending on which game mode we're talking about here. But always been one of my favorites in that game. I always liked just the gameplay of it itself, and it's got that really nice just Nepal kind of Himalayan aesthetic to it. So shout outs to Nepal there.
It's got the Zenyatta statues, right? Yeah.
And that's my main guy, so
Hell yeah.
It's getting bonus points for me.
I like it. Good shout out. I definitely forgot about that one. Don't think about that game too much these days, but
yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, there's some very great times in there, but also some bad times. Okay, what do I got here?
I have one more non-honorable mention for what it's worth.
Okay, yeah, you go for that one.
Sure. This one, I saved the best for last because when I was thinking about doing this ranking, this was the first thing that popped into my mind, and it is a section of an open world game, so it's not a specific area, but Mountain Not Mountain, whatever you want to call it, from Death Stranding, which is, just kind of later on in the second open world of that game, you would say. You just eventually get to this Mountain Not City, I think is what the city is called. And then there's this huge snowy mountain behind it. And this is like what you mentioned with Red Dead Redemption 2 or like, Horizon or God of War, like all these newer, huge PS4, PS5 games, all just most beautiful aesthetics of walking through the snow. And this is like the peak of that, where just the reaction, or like how, I don't know, just all the little physics going on with walking through the snow or sliding down the snow, or your items falling in the snow, and you don't know where your stuff went, but then you can see like just a little patch in the snow where something's missing. So obviously that's where your briefcase fell down. But this was my favorite section in that game. It was so freaking challenging because of the slipperiness of it, because of the harshness. But it just made for some of the most fun problem solving in terms of, okay, where do I put a ladder? How do I set up my path here? And then it was so satisfying too, where you spent all this time to climb up the mountain. And then in that game, you can just hop on that little cart that follows you around, and you can just ride it like a fucking a snowboard, and you can just cruise down the whole mountain. And I would even just climb up one little hill, hop on the snowboard, cruise down, get a little speed. That game's obviously all about traversal and trying to get places efficiently. And that was such a fun challenge in that game. So I just absolutely love that whole area. It was a place that once I beat the main game, and I was just like wanting to do more side quests just to play more of the game. It's like, I just want to do everything, any quest possible in these mountains. It was just so good.
That's awesome. I never got there in the game, but I was at
my buddy.
I was at my buddy Tyler. Shouts out to Patreon Tyler's house, and he was actually on that mountain, and I was just shocked because I didn't know that there was like snow in the game up until that point. And yeah, they definitely do a good job at bringing in the harshness of it. And yeah. Cool. I was curious if a Death Stranding title was going to get brought up here. I got 2 other ones to mention here. Okay. I think it's the final act of Ghost of Tsushima, like the third part. The way that act kind of opens up, like that's when you're getting introduced, I guess, to the snowy area, and you just feel very cold and down and out, and everything's not going well for your main character Jin up until that point. But and kind of like from that point like onward, that is a snowy area, so it's kind of a wide range, I guess, that you could use. But for me, it's mostly just like that opening, I think, of that third act. You just really feel the snowy cold, just horribleness that your main character is kind of feeling it in that moment. But that game did have some fun snow elements to it, although it's not like a main mechanic of the game. I still think they did a good job at incorporating that, and it just makes it feel like the environments are a little bit colder because of it. Yeah, no, that definitely popped into my mind too, but I couldn't think of a specific location, so I ended up leaving it off. But I'm glad you shouted it out, and I think that's what Sly Cooper and Ghost of Tsushima. Your big shout outs to Sucker Punch over here, right? Yeah, big Sucker Punch stan. The last one I wanted to mention for just an honorable mention is the game called Kholat. So Kholat. This is an interesting little survival horror game, and it's actually narrated by Sean Bean. Interesting enough, you're basically following the story of like I think it's actually based somewhat loosely off of like a true story of these like Russian hikers that went missing in the rural mountains. And I must say, like the game mechanics wise, it's kind of repetitive, and it's not like
these screenshots are insane.
It's not the most fun game to actually play, but immersively, that's a weird thing to say, aesthetically and just immersing you into this world, I think they knocked it out of the park, like 10 out of 10. I think the opening 15 minutes of this game is some of the best immersion that I've ever gotten out of a game. Like you just really feel the aesthetic of being alone. It's
on sale for $4 right now. I might just buy this game tonight.
Still must jump in there. Out. You're a big horror guy now.
I know, this is exactly what I need right now.
Sean Bean as well narrating.
Sean Bean.
I would love to hear your thoughts on it, because I think the overall gameplay cycle isn't the most fun to play through, but man, those opening like 10 minutes of it are just a knockout of the park. There's no like real talking, like, because you have Sean Bean kind of narrating the opening, and then it just goes to, you are in this location completely alone and you're just wandering, and then it's just snow blizzard going off, tons and tons of snow. You got some really ominous, beautiful music that kind of just like, I don't even want to say too much, but just at a certain point...
I'm playing this game this month. I promise you that. I will share my thoughts in January. I will definitely play this game. This looks amazing.
Hey, man, maybe we should talk about it. Maybe I should plug it back in and do a little
Let's do a little retro, a little co-op retro. No one's heard of this game before. Like, what are these guys talking about?
Absolutely. There's a certain moment though where the music just dies down and all you hear is just the wind, the wind and the snow just hitting you. So really wanted to shout this out, mostly for
Snowy Wind is a great combo. We talked about that in the Arcs retro as well. Like wind in terms of aesthetic, strong. Oh yeah, very strong.
Very strong S tier aesthetic. So yeah, that's kind of a hidden gem. I didn't think I was gonna get anything out of that, but there you go. Now you're gonna be picking this one up. Great price, $4.
So sorry, should I put a name for a level, or should I just? I need to put something because everything else has a name. So you got to give me a name.
I'll say the opening to Kolot. So just the opening sequence, just because it really immerses you into it, and then from that point on, like you're just in the cold mountains. So like you're kind of used to that.
The game looks incredibly like the visuals are amazing. Now it could just be screenshots. Do you think this game's gonna run on my computer, or do I gotta get my laptop?
I think so. Like it runs on mine pretty strong. Old, yeah. I remember when I bought it, I was very excited to play it because I think I got it like really close to the actual release, and it did not work like at all on my laptop. Like I was getting like 6 frames per second on my old computer. So bummed because you're like really looking forward to playing a game, and then it just cannot run for shit. So I can learn my lesson there. But yeah. Cool.
Should we get into some honorable mentions here?
Let's do it.
So I think maybe we'll just kind of go one at a time and just rifle off our list, and we can stop on it if we want to. This one, I have not actually played this level, but I had to shout out because every single list I looked up of like people ranking their favorite snow levels and whatnot always had this on there. And if it's anywhere as good as the quality of the TV show from this year, then I have to agree that it's probably a really great area. But The Last of Us has like a pretty iconic snow winter, I guess just the season, right? Is like a whole section of that game. So shout outs to Last of Us. I'm sure that snow level is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And then there was sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention like because I know at a certain point of that game, it's kind of considered like the winter portion. Yeah. I didn't play that one. I was kind of thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, someone's gonna be listening to this, they're not gonna hear a Last of Us mention. They're just be like, 0 to 10 rankings.
Yes, but, exactly. I'm trying to keep those 5-star reviews coming. Of course, there was so many kind of open world or games that are like completely winter themed, and it's like hard to pick a specific spot. So I haven't, once again, not one I've played, but I want to shout out Journey to the Savage Planet. I think is a very snowy game. The Long Dark is all about like surviving in the northern Canadian wilderness. I love that game, but it's like it's so interconnected and it's all kind of the same with little variations. I can't really pick like a specific spot, so that one's going to exist as a shout out. The first Tomb Raider reboot is like a very snowy game, but I can't like pick a level, so it's hard for me to go back to that because it's just been a while since I've played it. Because it came out in 2013 at this point, so hard to remember. But I'm sure if I played that more recently, that would be in there. I just love the season of winter in Animal Crossing. It's always a good vibe. There's obviously that's all about like the holidays, and there's all these events and things, so it's very Christmassy. So shouts to that. Kirklin, if I say mirth in reference to Sea of Stars, is that a thing that you'd be familiar with yet? I don't know if you've gotten to this part. Okay.
No, not familiar.
I won't say anything, but I'll just say shout-outs to that one. I feel like there's got to be some great Hoth level that exists, right?
Oh, yeah. I had that on my honorable mention, specifically just from Star Wars Battlefront 2, because that was the one that I played the most, and that one had like different mounts and different costumes for the actual troopers and everything, so they did a good job at capturing that.
Yeah, I'm sure I had tons of fun with the Hoth areas in Lego Star Wars back in the day, but haven't played those in so long, and the remake, whatever edition just absolutely sucked, so I didn't play much of that game. Shoutouts to the Village section of Resident Evil Village. That's kind of like the hub area of the game, so you like very early on get to the village, and it's all this beautiful kind of, beautiful but desolate, scary, snowy town. And then you go off to the different areas of the game. And that's kind of where you keep reuniting with. So it's kind of a familiar, happy place after a while. The first time you go there, it's terrifying, but then it becomes a place that you're familiar with and you understand. And it's like, that's your territory, your domain. So even if more enemies show up, you know how to take them out. So shoutouts to that area. Shoutouts to the Rikers prison level from Serial Cleaners, which was a game I shouted out pretty highly in me and Dante's like best levels ranking of last year. I don't know if it's super, that game takes place like, there's Christmas lights. I think it takes place on like New Year's Eve is when the characters are kind of sharing the story, and then they're like flashing back, and that's what the levels are. But that game has a good kind of wintry aesthetic in general. Celeste as well. It's a great platformer all about climbing a mountain. So like that whole game, not the whole game, but most of the game is snowy. So it's hard for me to pick one, but shouts to Celeste. And then my last honorable mention is, this is very much just like, I'm just trying to sneak this in any way I can because I'm like, there's got to be some great arcane snow level, but there really isn't. But the closest is that at the nighttime on the Freestad Rock level of Deathloop, it's like it starts to get really snowy, right? As the game progresses, like a snowstorm comes in at night. And it's never like full snow level, but it's kind of just like starting to sprinkle snow and whatnot. But I just remember the first time I like walked out of the bunker in Freestad Rock at nighttime, and there was like no enemies there. Normally there's a bunch of enemies in that little area, but instead it's just like desolate and it's kind of dark and you can't see too far because of the fog, and there's just like snow coming in at like a beautiful angle. So really beautiful aesthetic there, but I feel like this would be me cheating. And then like, it's arcane, so obviously it's like an amazing level. So I feel like it would cheat and get too high on the list, and it's really more of just a shout out for me. But obviously there's actually a lot of snow in Deathloop, but it's never really the main thing. It's more on like the edges of the map where things get a bit snowy. So.
Oh yeah, good shout out though. I'm glad you found one arcane one, because I had the same thought. I'm like, there's got to be an arcane snow level somewhere in there, but even arcs, I'm like, is there a snowy section? I guess where the dragon is, there's some ice, but it's not
there
really
is that
snowy.
area, but that's not my favorite area.
No,
so
it's not a fun section.
But I was like, man, does Dishonored not have any snowy areas? Like that's shocking to me. But it's like it truly doesn't. It doesn't have a single snowy area. It's wild.
Very wild.
Those are all my honorable mentions. If you want to shout some out here.
Yeah, I threw like SX Tricky on there.
Right. Yeah.
Same thing with like Steep. That's the other Ubisoft snowboarding one. There's probably some other one. That was the main one. So my top of my head. Lost Planet. I never actually owned this game, but I just remember being at a friend's house way back in the day and seeing him play it, and just lots of snow. So I figured I would at least bring it up in the honorable mention.
I think that's when I said Journey of the Savage Planet, I think I was thinking of Lost Planet. So
okay.
There you go. Thank you for correcting mine. Yeah.
That was another one similar to Alan Wake, where I saw it on like the Xbox 360 magazine, like in the.
I always love
library.
watching YouTube videos or trailers of this game.
Yeah.
I never played it. I never rented it. This seems like an easy Blockbuster rental. I don't know why I never did that back in the day.
I mentioned I didn't mention Arendelle from Kingdom Hearts 3. This is like the Frozen world from Disney's Frozen. So obviously there's lots of snow and ice in that section there.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't love that specific level actually when we played through it. So I didn't want to fight for it on the best 10 list, but at least a shout out. My last shout out here. Oh, I also had Nagarond. That's another northern section from Total War Warhammer. That's where the Dark Elves are. It's kind of like Canada. So they usually like compare the real world to the Total War world, which is actual areas, because it's like loosely inspired by the actual geography of the world. So I would call that Canada. Very snowy, very icy, and very dangerous. And then my last honorable mention is Project Zomboid. That whole game, it just goes through seasons. So at some point, if you make it to Christmas time, like there will be a lot of snow and it's that much more deadly. I have not gotten there, but I just know from watching YouTube videos there is a section in there. Shouts out to that game.
That's a great, like, it's even like Hogsmeade and Hogwarts Legacy in the winter specifically, that's an amazing aesthetic, but it feels like that's narrowing in almost like too much to a certain point. But any game that has like the seasons going through, the winter is always a fun season when it comes down.
Even like Stardew Valley, I guess I could bring that one definitely up there.
Changes the gameplay usually in games like that. Especially
100%. Cool.
That's our list, which I just was counting. And I think we're at 37 games, 37 levels, I should say. Not 37 games, 37 levels. So this is going to be, well, I don't know. I have no idea how hard or easy this is going to be. We'll have to just see when we get there. But how about we take a quick break, catch our breath, drink. I got some hot cocoa here. Just warm up a bit, get toasty. And then we'll go down here and we'll break down this top 10 list. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back. We got to start with a quick recap here. So how about you? There's my ad break numbers. I'm gonna put the block right here. Do you want to read all of these bottom ones here?
Sure.
Just quick recap.
Yeah, so starting at the top, we got the Crying Wolf boss battle from Metal Gear Solid 4, Battle of Blizzard Bridge on Kirby and the Forgotten Land, The Throat of the World from Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Oh, look at this. Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim section. We got Windhelm as well as Winterhold. All great noms. So we got the Ice Caves from Spelunky, Episode 7, Canada Games from Sly 2, Mount Wario from Mario Kart 8, DK Summit from Mario Kart Wii, Frappe Snowland from Mario Kart 64, just the Surface from Metro 2033. We got Midgard from God of War Ragnarok, Wilderness from Assassin's Creed 3, Summit, Call of Duty Black Ops map, Summit from Far Cry 4, and we got Nepal from Overwatch, Mountain Knot. That sounded weird. Mount Knot from Death Stranding.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that's what they called it when I was googling it, but
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Mountain Knot because it sounds cooler. But
yeah, that's weird. And then we just have Act 3 from Ghost of Tsushima. Nice blanket. Oh, and then of course the opening for Kolot.
Maybe Knot Mountain. I think that
Mount Not
that
Mountain.
rings the best off the tongue.
It's like Knox
And
Mountain from here in Kelowna.
Very close. Yeah, exactly. And then we also have the tutorial from Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced, prologue from Red Dead Redemption 2, Cool Mountain from Super Mario 64, Snow from Journey, Hokkaido from Hitman, A Train to Catch, Uncharted 2, Summit from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate, Frostmourne from Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, Bruma from Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, the prologue from Total War Warhammer 3, from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, we have Cliffhanger, the single-player level, and then Subbase and Derail from multiplayer. We have The Interloper from Outer Wilds, Northern Wastes from Fable, Sidewinder from Halo Combat Evolved, Snowbound from Halo 3, and Skyrail from 007 Nightfire. So we have huge list here. I feel like we should... Oh, man. I feel like we should probably start with a few cuts just to make things a bit easier on ourselves. So let me duplicate this down here. Just so
like for something like the Summit for Metro 2033, I'm totally fine with cutting that because it is a pretty blanket one. Yeah, sure. quick cut there.
And I'll even Mario Kart. I think I'm okay to cut Frappe Snowland for now. The Mario Kart 64 one. Yeah. So we can keep DK Summit and Mount Wario on the list for now, but I think I can drop that one out.
Let's see.
I think the tutorial from Final Fantasy Tactics, I'm happy to kick that one out at this time.
Yeah. Same thing with the prologue for Total War Warhammer 3. I'm glad it's on there, but it's a pretty short section, and yeah.
Cool. Let's see. We can't already get into the point where it's hard to make cuts, can we? I'll cut God of War Ragnarok at this point.
Okay.
And then
we could do Act 3 for Ghost of Tsushima. I think that's another just big blanket one.
Right, it's a bit too vague.
I was gonna say the opening for Kolot, but the more I think about it, I'm like, man, that snow and that sound of the snow is just so good. So
I haven't played it, and I already love the game. So, yeah.
Sean Bean's voice too. Oh, it's so powerful.
Let's see, where could we go next?
Okay, I was gonna bring up Halo. I think Sidewinder. I have like a lot of nostalgia memories for that map, but I think out of the two Halo maps, I do like the Snowbound pick purely for like the replayability of it, for it being a multiplayer map. Okay. But I don't know.
I love that name, by the way. Sidewinder.
That's
cool. Okay.
Definitely the name of a Transformer. I don't know which one, but it's just coming to my mind. I'm like, that must be a Transformer name.
Looking at Skyrim, do you want to?
Yeah, we got some big ones.
Do you want to knock at least one of these off right now, or is Skyrim just too snowy and it's hard to cut?
It is too snowy. I was gonna say out of all of them, maybe Winterhold.
Okay, I'd feel the same. So if that's the weakest link of the three, then I think we can team up and get rid of that one. Now, not to poop on your pick here, but Assassin's Creed 3, it sounded a bit vague.
I was just going to say, yeah. I just saw it on there. I'm like, oh, we haven't cut that one yet? Okay, get that out of there.
Snuck in there. Let's see. Where are we going to go next?
We got some Modern Warfare maps. Do you want to look at those right now?
Yeah. So, Subbase is my preferred from the multiplayer, but I think I'm happy just going Cliffhanger, actually, and dropping both the multiplayer maps. That's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
We could at least drop Subbase for now if you want to keep Derail. I'm okay with that.
I mean, we got a lot to work through here. I'm pretty.
Why not get a
fine
2 for 1?
with just yeah.
Let's do that. And then you know what? I also think that since we have, I was gonna say potentially Bruma just because we have Skyrim stuff, but they're pretty different vibes. So maybe it's a bit slightly early on that.
Mm.
I might even, we just got rid of Sidewinder. I might even be okay to get rid of Snowbound 2. If it was my favorite map in Halo 3, it'd be a different story, but it's not quite. So I think I'm okay to drop that one. So unfortunately, an early drop for Halo. I feel like Halo is one of those shooters that like every game in the series has snow areas or snow levels and whatnot.
It's a staple.
But shout outs to Snowbound.
I was going to mention Frostmourne.
Right, from Warcraft.
Yeah. I just feel like I might have a hard time defending it.
I couldn't find too many images. It seemed like it's like I can see this part with the sword and like that little zone, but it's hard for me to get a total vibe of it. Because whenever I search Frostmourne, it just shows me like pictures of the sword, so it's hard to find like pictures of the actual area that we're talking about, I guess. So I'm putting a lot of faith in you on that one, but I trust you. So
I'm just pulling up an image of the actual map. See, there is a lot of snow on the actual the gameplay of it.
Right.
Oh my god, it's got commentary. That's not good. I'll just do a little share screen here.
Okay, yeah. Do I have to kick mine off here, or I can just drop?
Yeah, maybe. Look at that snow.
Oh yeah, that snow effect. That's classic right there. Yeah,
God,
this has
I
the
love
good.
This game so
as
much.
I mentioned, the ice aesthetic. Like I love those icy walls. I love that just teal ice blue. Like that is classic to me. I think what would do it for me if these buildings had snow on the roofs, that would be like a little bit better. But
no, that's fair. I was gonna say like an easy cut, just because you brought up a good point of it being a lot more icy than snowy. But then when I pulled it up and there actually was snowfall,
we don't have a lot of icy forward ones on here, so it's good. It's valuable to have that in there. We can leave it for the time being. Okay. I think I'm okay to drop Spelunky only because it's a bit vague as well. It's not a specific designed level. It's kind of just the aesthetic of it. So I love it. If this is my personal top 10, it might be on there, but I respect that this is a collective list, and so I'm gonna be okay to drop that one.
I just got a glimpse of some of my powerful picks on there, and it kind of dwarfs the summit for Far Cry 4 in comparison, so I'm pretty okay with getting rid of that one right now.
Now, are you feeling like it's time to maybe make a couple locks here? Or do you want to keep? Because I think for me, it's going to it's going to be hard to do some cuts until I kind of
I know what
some
you
more
mean.
of this out.
Let's do some.
Well, actually, I'll make one more. I'll cut my namesake here. I'll cut the Interloper. It's really cool, really great. It's very unique in terms of how this list goes, for sure. Yeah. So maybe I'm not. I don't know.
I was going to mention the Northern Waste and Fable. That's another like super big area. There is some great snowy aspect to it, but I think it might be more icy than snowy.
Even that town though, the Snow Spire, really cool.
Yeah. Okay, we can keep it if you want.
Yeah, I dropped the Interloper. It's a tough call, but it made it far. I think as far as a lock goes, like there's no way in any world that Hokkaido's not on this top 10 in my opinion.
Yeah. Get it in there.
So I would lock that one. So let's move it up to the lock zone up here.
I think I counter that one with the
what's your top dog?
The Crying Wolf boss battle, actually. There's some really powerful picks on there, and I still think that is higher than at least my picks on there. Highly recommend you at least checking out that boss battle on YouTube.
I was going to mention this earlier, but I have officially downloaded the Metal Gear Solid Volume 1 collection. It's on my Switch. And as soon as Game of the Year stuff is done and I can, technically that is a new release this year, but it's downloaded. And like I said, when me and you and Taylor were doing our backlog episode, that's my big goal for December. That and Earthbound are my big backlog ones. Yeah. So I'm going to, I'll probably take them out before I get to 4, and I don't think it's in that collection, but I will get there at some point. I'm going to go through them chronologically. So I'm starting my Metal Gear journey pretty soon here, which I'm excited about.
Awesome. What about Cliffhanger? Because in my mind, I think that's a top 10.
Yeah, the tricky part for that one is that were it not for me watching a YouTube video to familiarize myself, it'd be like, oh, it's hard to remember like details. And so I did watch some YouTube, and it's like, okay, that is great. I do remember this, but it's like it's not as tactile as some of these other ones for me that I've played recently. Fair. You know, so I feel like there's a good chance. But when I look at this list that still has like 25 games on it or 20 games wherever we're at, I don't know if I'm quite in the lock territory with it. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably going to make it. And I think, you know, to make it a bit easier, I'm okay to drop Summit as the only other Call of Duty pick at the moment. So that leaves that as the final Call of Duty one, which I think gives it a higher chance of making it on there for sure. But I can get rid of, or you've also played Summit too, right? So how do you feel about that?
No, I'm fine with cutting that. I think if I had to pick one or the other, it would definitely be Cliffhanger.
So let's see. Oh man, this is hard. Do you have anything that you just feel like you can't be happy unless this locked on the list, unless it's in the top 10 at the very least?
I would say, man, I would say probably the prologue for Red Dead 2.
Ooh, okay.
I just think that's like, again, like some of the best snow I've ever seen in a video game done, and they do just a good job at emphasizing the harshness of it, the danger that the cold brings. There's a lot of characters just dealing with that early on, as well as I think like once that section's kind of over, you really just feel the warmth of like not being in the winter. So it's like does a great job at just comparing the two stark contrasts of the harsh winter as well as the warmer elements. So probably that one. I do have a lot of love though for like that snow section of Journey. It is a very small section, so I don't know how that's gonna last when we get down to the top 10. But I'm at least happy that it's still there for now.
Right.
Have you played Journey? I'm not sure.
No, that's definitely a big backlog one as well. And every time you mention it, I'm like want to play it more and more. And I didn't even realize there was a snow level, so that makes me want to play it even more and more. So at some point in my life, I will get to it.
So yeah, I think right now Red Dead 2 is probably like my next number one. The way that Journey snow section makes me feel, though, it's still higher.
I think we should make some more cuts then for a bit, perhaps.
Yeah, let's do that.
And I think this is a spot where I'd be okay to drop Nepal from Overwatch.
Overwatch, yeah.
Only because to me it's not the most snowy of these, which sounds like kind of sounds reductive, but that's the ranking we're doing here.
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay with that one dropping, and then I kind of feel like Mario Kart should only have one rep.
It would be Mount Wario for me.
Well, then it'd be that for me too. So let's do that. So we just did a nice little 1-2 punch there.
Okay. It's good chops.
We're making good progress.
I'm looking at Skyrail. I feel like that might be a little bit of a lower one, as well as, I mean, yeah, I think I'm okay with cutting that one.
Get rid of Skyrail.
And like even comparing that one with Warcraft 3 Frostmourne again, I feel like I might actually pick Skyrail over that. So if we're already getting rid of that, I think I'm okay at this point to get rid of it.
Okay.
Frostmourne hungers, as Arthas would say.
Hungers. Let me do a count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we need to get rid of 7 of these in order to make a top 10.
It's pretty good so far. What do we start with? Like 32?
37, I think. So we've actually got rid of look at how huge that list originally was.
Oh my god, I thought you just scroll down, there was more options.
No, those are I like to duplicate it so I don't lose them.
Smart man.
Let's see. So looking at this list, we still have 2 Skyrim picks, but of course it's Skyrim, so that feels like if there's any game that has potential to have 2 picks, that feels like the one. So I don't think that's necessarily the next Jenga block. But it's hard for me to make this decision. I think if you had played Oblivion and knew of Bruma yourself, maybe I could. I just feel like if I'm already considering it, and I've considered it before.
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls, I know is going to be represented. I guarantee at least one of these Skyrim maps is going to make it. So I think I'm okay to drop Bruma. And honestly, if it was a more like crucial part of that game that had a lot more like big quests going on, I'd probably feel differently about it. But it's almost more of like a holiday, which of course is good, but different energy to it.
I was kind of thinking A Train to Catch, but I also kind of want to keep that now. The more I think about it, just like the ending sequence of that level is so strong when it comes to the snow element. What about Cool Mountain? We haven't really brought that one up much, but I still like entering this. I would have imagined that would be an easy lock in the top 10.
I thought so too. And
I'm not even like necessarily like against it or anything. It's just I don't feel as strong for or against it compared to some other ones on here.
There's not a weak link on this list anymore.
Yeah.
And that's, I haven't played all these games either. I don't know all these levels offhand, but yeah, it's to me it's officially at that point where it's like it's really hard to make any cuts or I'll put this out there that my next lock for me, my personal one, is definitely not Mountain from Death Stranding. As I said, that was the first one that came to mind. So,
I'm totally fine with locking that.
You want to put it up? Okay, that makes me a happy man, and that makes it easier for me to do other stuff because now I got my baby on there.
That baby on there.
My snowy baby.
I think I'm like jumping off of what you just said there. I think I'm pretty confident in my want for the prologue of Red Dead 2 here. Actually, yeah.
Let's us.
That one's another one that's got amazing just Blizzard audio.
I feel like that was the first big, next gen at the time games too, with the snow physics of walking around. I remember all of the chatter of that. Now,
snowflakes coming through your earbuds, just like
right, yeah, all that good stuff.
4D gaming.
That's a good one. Are we overhyping Kolot, or is that like a top 10er for you? I have not played it, of course, so it's like. Are we overhyping it, or is the snow elements of it so strong?
I don't think I'm overhyping that opening element of it, like the audio and the actual aesthetic of the snow.
I just had to ask.
At least right now.
Yeah.
Which that wasn't even like a main pick when I brought it up. I think it was like the tail end.
No, that was like just sneaking in there. I love that it's working. We haven't, since we've started cutting, we haven't talked about Sly 2. That, to me, it sounds like a really high tier pick based off the description.
It is for sure. That's a nostalgia game for me, as well as like one of the best sequences of it. And if we're making a best snow levels, I'd be kicking myself if I didn't at least keep it in the talk for like top 15, which I guess we're in that area now.
We're there, yeah.
What about Summit from Smash?
Yeah, that's the one I've been looking at here. I'm looking at it only because like I feel like a lot of my personal picks I still have quite a few here. Oh man, I don't know. It's hard for me. Here's what's hard is that comparing a Call of Duty campaign map versus a Smash Bros stage versus a Super Mario 64 level versus a section of Skyrim versus this level structure of Kirby versus a Mario Kart course. Like, these are so different, and all these other rankings we've done in the past, things are more in a bucket where this is so much more vague because of the descriptor of it. So it's really hard for me to say. Like, we only have 6 spots left. Like, is Summit in those 6 spots? Like, I'm not ready to cut it yet, but if I had to guess right now, I don't think it'll make it, but I'm still not ready to cut it just because, god damn, this is hard. This is really hard at this point.
This is very, very hard. What about the Battle of Blizzard Bridge?
Man, I think that's probably the next one to go. I'm glad it's made it this far, but I think it's the time for it to go. But seriously, Kirklin, after we're done this, it's probably not on Spotify. Hit up YouTube. Just listen to the music for that again. It is so. I would put it on in the background here, but we get copyright. Like, it is so freaking good, so freaking good. Even just put it on in your headphones while we're going through this video. Yeah. You need to listen to that music again. Now that we're getting down to it, and with how many strong picks we have, I think reducing Skyrim to 1 is maybe the move. And for me, Windhelm would be the 1. How do you feel about that?
Ooh.
Do you feel opposite? We got a couple mountains. We got Mount Mountain. We got Hokkaido.
I think, I had Throat of the World higher than it, but like that's also not like a specific city. And if you think of like the coldest city in all of Skyrim, it definitely is Windhelm. And just the amount of snow that's in that city, like there's not any like areas on the ground that aren't snow in that city. And
if you're not ready to cut, you're not ready to cut.
It's like I am ready, but I like can't say it out loud. I can't cross.
Let's do it different. Let's put it right here. So it's it's still on our screen, but it's not in that tier anymore. So now we need we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Gosh.
And we need to cut 4 more here.
Oh man.
And now that we're down to this stage of it, I think Summit can go, and it's sad for me to say, I think I can drop Summit. To be clear, though, Smash Bros. Stage, because there's 100 Summits.
Right.
On this big list, but
I was going to ride off of what you just did, and I think I'm okay with dropping Colot. Still think it's one of, like, again,
I'm
the
gonna
most
play
powerful
it soon.
immersive openings.
We'll revisit Colot, yeah.
You're gonna play it and be like, why did you let me get rid of that game? It's such a powerful snow level.
Maybe.
What's our numbers at right now? So we have 4 locked. Need 6 more.
So we need to get rid of 2 more.
Okay.
And then, well, if Throw the World's a contender, we need to get rid of 3 more. So we have Fable. Let's recap for the auto listeners. I guess so. The ones we've locked: Hokkaido from Hitman, Crying Wolf from MGS, Not Mountain, Death Stranding, and the prologue from our Red Dead. And then our contenders right now are the Northern Wastes from Fable, Cliffhanger from Modern Warfare 2, Train to Catch, Uncharted 2, Snow from Journey, Cool Mountain from SM64, Windhelm from Skyrim, Episode 7 Canada Games from Sly 2, Mount Wario from Mario Kart 8, and then kind of on the edge, on the edge of the cliff here is Throw to the World for Skyrim. I guess now that we're getting down to, well, if you have a cut, please, then go ahead.
I think I'm ready to cut a Train to Catch from Uncharted 2.
Okay.
I think in my mind I had remembered that being a lot snowier than it actually is. Maybe it's just because of the way that it ends. Like it really does open you up to like the peak of a mountain that you're kind of on.
Yeah.
But like just looking at like screen, like you're kind of at like a jungle at some section because you're like lower down. So
no jungle. It's not the best jungle ranking. So
no, exactly. It's not even like a snowy jungle either. So. Yeah, great, absolutely one of the greatest levels of video games I think I've ever played.
On this list,
but yeah, I'm okay with cutting it.
I was also going to ask about Northern Wastes from Fable.
Yeah, that was the other one.
Only because I haven't. I mean, there's 3 on this list: that, Snow, and Episode 7, Sly 2 that I haven't played. So it's hard for me to make a call on any of those, of course. But it sounded like Northern Wastes was the one that wavering, only maybe because of some vagueness of it. I'm excited to check it out when we do that retro someday. But
it's another one that I feel maybe aligns more on the icy side of snow, because I feel like the fact that it is the northern waste, it's so cold. Usually it's just like permafrost as opposed to snow falling all the time. Mm-hmm. Very, very cold. But I think there's a little bit more snow in some of these other levels that we're looking at.
It's not the coldest place in Skyrim, so
no, it's not.
So if we do that, and we assume that Throw the World is removed, then I think that's a list of 10 games. So how do you feel about this list now that you're looking at it?
I am actually very, very happy with this list. I'm kind of impressed and surprised that Snow from Journey got on there, but honestly, I think it's so deserving of it. Like, it is such a... Like, when you compare the overall scale of what that game is, it's a very, like, short-ish section of like, feeling the harshness of the snow, but I think it just does so much for the little amount of time of the game that it really covers, that it's got to be on there, I don't know, for me at least. So, yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. Mount Wario...
Are you okay to say goodbye to Throw to the World for Skyrim?
I am.
Or do you want to make
No, I am. I think comparing, like, if I do a 1v1 with any of the other titles on this list, I think Throw to the World is 0-10 by the end of the day.
It's number 11 for sure.
Yeah.
It is the highest of honorable mentions that are possible in this world. So here's our 10, and we're gonna order this, but we got Hokkaido from Hitman, Crying Wolf, Not Mountain, the prologue from Red Dead Redemption, Cliffhanger, Snow from Journey, Cool Mountain, Windhelm, Canada Games, and Mount Wario. So yeah, I love the eclectic just genres that we got here. I love that we have, I feel like, some more modern games versus some early 2000s sort of games.
Totally.
So we have a nice mix here. Wow, I don't know which way to go with this. Is there a clear bottom or a clear top?
I think I have a couple that are in like a lower range. I'm very glad they're in the top 10, but something like the Canada games from Sly 2. I think it has so many, I mean, the Canada isms in it. It's very cold, and it's got all like just the polar bears and things like that, but
nice, yeah.
No major snow comparison. Like if I compare it to like snow from Journey, like it's not gonna win any means there. So happy with that one being a little bit lower. What was the other one? I think the snow from Journey, it is very, very impactful for me. I would love to see it around that number 5 range, but again, like you haven't actually played the game, so it is tough to judge it there. I'm okay with that one being lower because it is on the top 10 already.
So, yeah, obviously such an eclectic group, hard to make a call here. This is something I'm struggling with is, I mean, if we're talking about just individual level design, like quality of actual level, like Hitman, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, is like number 1 on this list, but that's not exactly what this list is. We're not just ranking like the best individual levels that happen to have snow on them, right? It's the whole aesthetic, it's the whole vibe of it completely.
That's a good point.
But to me, that feels like it's got to be like still at least top 5 just because of how quality that is as well. So, I mean, maybe for the sake of now, we're just going to like break this up in little groups here. So we'll say that there's like kind of the mid tier, the top tier, and the bottom tier, so to speak, for now. I feel like, what do I feel like?
I think if we're tiering them, I would put Red Dead 2 in like the upper tier for sure, as well as the Crying Wolf boss battle for me.
Okay.
I don't want to just say it; those are gonna be top 5 no matter what. But
well, how about we leave Null Mountain in that group too, then, and that way I'm happy.
There you go. And I think out of all of those, I could possibly put Journey below them, like below a tier amongst all those titles.
I'll do that for now. When I look at this, so when I'm looking at this, I feel like when I'm talking about the level or the area itself, like I feel like Cool Mountain is the one I want to put the lowest, so like I guess number 9. But then I also feel like out of all of these, even out of all 10 of these on the list, I feel like it is the most Christmassy.
Yeah.
With its music, with its snowmen, with its lightheartedness, with its color palette. And so that's what I'm struggling with. Where do you think you fall on that element of it? Like, is this something that we can just happily slot at 9th, or because of its like more cheery vibes, like should that carry it up a couple spots? Maybe if there's other stronger areas than it.
Maybe, but like personally, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where I just knew it was going to be on here at some point, but I don't have like a lot of powerful arguments into like make it break through into that upper echelon range.
Sounds like at least 9th right now.
Yeah.
Is where we should put it.
I'm happy with that.
And that brings us to that kind of means like Canada Games and Cool Mountain would be in that kind of 9th and 10th spot. And then we kind of have this tier of Mount Wario, Windhelm. I feel like Windhelm should I think Cliffhanger's like so good too. I feel like I think I'm pretty okay with Mount Wario being 8th on this list.
I think so as well. It's great. Again, winter vibe. It actually being a ski hill, but no, you make some good. I don't feel like I'm frozen while playing. Mount Wario.
That's not what you want to feel playing a racing game. You want to be blazing around. So that leaves that kind of middle tier of Cliffhanger and Windhelm, which really I just want to collapse them into that top tier. Like I feel like that's such a just great mix of levels right there, and like so distinct. Maybe. How would you feel about Cliffhanger at 7th? Does that make sense to you?
So we got 10, 9, 8, 7 Cliffhanger.
I kind of feel like I feel like Windhelm needs to be higher in some way to me. Yeah. And I don't know if that's Cliffhanger moving down or something else moving down. I feel like Cliffhanger is the easiest one to be the victim.
I think I'm willing. Man.
It is tricky,
it's
right?
So hard.
The area of an open world game versus like a distinct level.
Yeah.
It becomes difficult.
Like I was going to say, I think I'm okay with letting Journey fall down a couple places to that 7th spot.
I'm surprised. Okay.
However, I just think for like the emotion that like you feel in that moment is more than what I would have gotten from Cliffhanger from Windhelm.
Yeah.
So it's like personally, I have it in that top 5 easy.
Different pros and
cons.
But
a collective top 10 list, I think like Cliffhanger, when that blizzard comes in and like all you can really see is your red dot, like that's just such a You got snowmobiles too in that level. You got a crazy jump.
Oh
to
yeah,
hit.
snowmobiles. That's a good point. Forgot. Yeah.
A lot of different factors
So
in there.
I mean, I obviously I'm okay with dropping snow below the 2 that I've played, of course. So that's I'm okay to make that change if you're at that point.
What about snow above Windhelm? How do you feel about that?
So just cliffhanger moving. Oh, I'll happily move cliffhanger up just because of because I have personal attachment to it.
I'm okay with this tentative.
Yeah.
At least right now. I don't know if we have to.
I don't hate it.
Mark it in. Yeah.
I don't hate it. Yeah, it's funny looking at our top 4 because it's 4 games that 2 are my picks, 2 are your picks.
Yeah.
And they've kind of floated to the top of the list, which I think makes sense. I think I'm okay to move Hokkaido to like the bottom of these 4.
Okay.
Once again, not because of quality of level design, but because of the snowiness of it. Mm-hmm. So I'll do that for now. At least I can make that. I'm sure you're happy with that change because it moves 2 of your picks up a slot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't see it dropping below anything else on the list for me. So I think that's like a good line in the sand or line in the snow.
How do you feel about Windhelm right now? Like, are you okay with where it's
I still look
sitting?
at it and I feel like it should be higher, but then I know that's at the cost of some other like insanely good snow level. So it feels weird to me still, but I think I can be okay with it. I think I'm starting to accept it.
Something else too, to like just have the argument of where it's at right now, which is very high, comparing to the 37 that we already had on here. But the snow in Skyrim is it's everywhere, but I don't really feel like it's alive like some of these other snow mechanics that these other games have, like from Red Dead, from like snow specifically from Journey. Like I just feel like it's cutting through your armor. And in Elder Scrolls games, like, there's certain things that, like I mentioned, like if you're climbing the 7,000 steps through the world and you're butt ass naked, even if you're not a Nord, like it doesn't matter. You're not taking like cold damage by it. That's there true. Might be some good audio, but it doesn't feel like it's really chinking your armor or anything like that. So I think the fact that it doesn't feel alive makes me want to put it lower than some of these other ones, even though, it's the coldest place in all Skyrim.
God damn that line. Yeah, I mean, you've sold me. I think I'm happy with it at what is that?
Okay.
10, 9, 8, 7th there.
Yeah.
So are you okay to lock in snow at 6th at this point?
Yeah.
From Journey?
I'm happy with that for sure.
So then Cliffhanger is in 5th right now. Do you think it's going to climb up at all, or do you think that's where it caps out? I think that's where it caps out. Ice caps. So.
Yeah, I think it caps out there because I'm not moving it up on my picks there, so it would be on you if you want to put it above Hokkaido, which I doubt that.
No, absolutely not. So we're getting down to it. So it's essentially the top 4 right now. I was looking at Prologue from Red Dead, Crying Wolf from MGS, Not Mountain from Death Stranding, and Hokkaido from Hitman. I think Hokkaido. We can lock that in officially at number 4. I would love to see Not Mountain maybe climb up one spot, I don't know which one of your 2, by the way, is the higher of the 2.
I was actually going to propose a very, very similar trade of allowing Red Dead to take that number 1 spot, just because it is the most modern game. When did Death Stranding come out? Yeah, before Red Dead, right? Or are they similar time frames?
2019 for Death Stranding. I think Red Dead was 2018, right? So
okay, there you go. So Crying Wolf, I think. The fact that it's like a PS3 era game, it does feel a little bit more dated, even though it's so ahead of its time at that era. But I wouldn't put it above Red Dead 2. And if you feel really strongly about Not Mountain, I'm okay with putting that one above it, just because it's a little bit dated.
Yeah, I mean, Not Mountain is just overwhelmingly snowy mountain playground. It's like to me, it's like the epitome of what this list is looking after, where it's just playing in the snow in the way that I mentioned that Final Fantasy Tactics, you can throw snowballs. You can't throw snowballs in like any other game for some reason. Every game that has snow, you should be able to just like have infinite ammo going on there. But yeah, like that's what that area in Death Stranding is for me. It's just this big snowy playground. So yeah, it's got that on lock. So
nice.
When I look at this, like, I think I'm pretty happy with this top 10.
I'm very happy with this list.
Why don't you read it off from 10 down to number 1?
From 10 down to number 1. Okay, so
here.
starting at number 10, I'm so glad this made it on here. We got episode 7, the Canada Games from Sly 2, the Band of Thieves, I believe the title's called. Then we got Cool Cool Mountain from Super Mario 64, Mount Wario from Mario Kart 8, Windhelm, the coldest city in all of Skyrim, on Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. We have Snow from Journey, and then we're entering the top 5 here with Cliffhanger, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Hokkaido from Hitman. Was that from the first Hitman? I know they're like collective now, but was that from the
2016? I think it was a DLC for 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then top 3 here, we got Crying Wolf, Boss Battle from Metal Gear Solid 4, Not Mountain, Death Stranding, and the Prologue from Red Dead Redemption 2.
Amazing. We've done it. We have officially ranked the best snow levels in video games. This is a fun list.
Very fun.
A fun, weird list. We both had some kind of good surprise picks there, and then some shared love going on there. And I even learned about this game called Cola that I'm going to go buy after this podcast and play in the next month here. So thank you, everyone, for listening. You know, if you're listening to this around that holiday, hope you have a nice, fun holiday. You stay warm inside, have some, I don't know, what do people do? Hang out with their family, chill, or just do whatever you want. Play some video games, play some snowy games, play some winter games.
Play Cola.
Whatever it is.
$4 right now.
Yeah, play Cola if you want to just scare yourself. But yeah, thank you, everyone, so much for listening. And I guess at this point, we'll see you again next year. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.